Because fascism is, to a certain extent, hard to define. Oh, how convenient! Historians have varying definitions. It's reactionary, a fluid movement that takes on qualities of nation and leader. Much of it is about how to achieve power. Uneasy and dishonest alliances and policies and compromises due to unprincipled opportunism. Saying one thing, doing another. At one point, Hitler claimed to be a social democrat. Because in at least some part, fascism is a grift for power. It's a bit of an ideologically inconsistent grift, led by the kind of person who was maybe a Republican, then in the Independence Party, then ran for president as the Reform Party, then was a Democrat, then became a Republican, then became an independent, then a Republican, and donated more money to Democrats than Republicans when he was a Republican, and then became the president. Oh, but what, does he have to become the president? Okay, he does. All right, great. So, unfortunately, he is the president, and he's an obvious authoritarian, dishonest right-wing demagogue who's playing off hatred of the left and feelings of national decline in order to gain power. He is a fascist. And just because I can say that right now without being dragged away...
If Trump were a Nazi, does Judd Apatow really think that he'd be able to go on Twitter and say stuff like this?
Doesn't mean I'm wrong. As I said in last week's video, there are stages, as outlined in a book I skimmed, Anatomy of Fascism, by historian Robert Paxton. Stage 1 is intellectual exploration, where disillusionment with popular democracy manifests itself in discussions of lost national vigor. Paxton says all democracies are in some form of this stage. There are ideas and feelings that boil up and cause the fascist movement to move forward. And before we move forward, just understand, if any of these feelings resonate with you, or even if I mention your name specifically, I'm not calling you a fascist specifically, probably. I'm merely pointing out that so very many qualities and features and events and emotions and necessary conditions of fascist movements are all related to him. And now, Trumpism 2018. Not as extreme as full-on literal Nazism, but still fascism. And Paxton points out how easy it was for respectable people from all walks of life to get swept up in a fascist movement. As Professor Jordan B. Peterson says, even you probably would have been a Nazi.
If you were there, for any one of you, there's a 90% chance that you would have got tangled up in it.
To start out quick and obvious, fascism is about an insider versus outsider mentality, creating others, as Britt writes, identification of enemies, scapegoats, as a unifying cause. Now, this is a tactic not unique to fascism, though it is heavily featured in it. And we can see this in the way Trump talks and the propaganda he uses. Umberto Eco, though, the fascism liver, he zeroes in on this much better with one of his 14 features of fascism, a fear of difference. The first appeal of a fascist or prematurely fascist movement is an appeal against the intruders, or like an invasion or an infestation. And if you don't get it at this point, please get it. The bare minimum and most common feature in all of fascism is on Britt's list: powerful and continuing nationalism. This doesn't just mean pride in one's country, though, or even just panderingly excessive pride. It's not just flags and pins, it's more about national chauvinism and palingenetic ultranationalism. About the rebirth of a country. You know, we used to be so good, great even, and yet here we are, no longer great still, at the death of a nation, wanting to be more than good once more. So now it's time to, perhaps, be reborn. Renewed national vigor, calling for a great reawakening of America, a resurgence of confidence, and a rebirth of patriotism, prosperity, and pride. The chauvinism part, the ultranationalism, refers to the superiority of the country over all else, the inferiority of outsiders, the feeling that a nation can do whatever it wants without consideration of other nations. America first versus whole countries. Chauvinism also requires devotion. Like, let's say a bunch of citizens burned a bunch of their stuff and boycotted the NFL because some players kneeled during the national anthem, and then the president intervened to punish the players if they protest again, and also called them traitors and said if they don't stand for the flag, maybe they shouldn't be in the country. Disagreement is treason, unlike our reasonable president who treats dissenters well and takes criticism well, and who, in response to football players kneeling for the national anthem in protest of state violence, suggested the sons of bitches should not live in this country, punishing people for not standing for the flag, perhaps, is chauvinistic nationalism, like this story of almost exactly that in Nazi Germany. And this kind of chauvinism is related to Eco's popular elitism, in which every citizen belongs to the best people of the world. The members of the party are the best among the citizens. Just the best people. Every citizen can, or ought to, get on the Trump train, or join the party or whatever. This popular elitism reinforces hierarchies of elitism, but it includes everyone, like,
Let's call ourselves from now on the super elite. We're the super elite.
This elitism, or super elitism, is linked to what Eco calls contempt for the weak, perhaps illustrated by the way the current president speaks about and treats people. His obsession with strength and cruelty to the weak, spending years saying countless things about your very good genes, and then insulting people about their extremely low IQ. And maybe there's a culture of Trumpism surrounding his movement, obsessed with betas, an idea based on a misrepresented and debunked study about how wolves behave in prison. And maybe Trumpism and snowflakes and cucks and soy boys, an insult about perceived weakness based on a misunderstood study from decades ago about sheep, or sipping your triggered liberal tears while maintaining control over all three branches of government. Wow, what a clip that was from the show. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe to this channel as well as our other channel where the full episodes are. It's called Some More News. This is called Some More News Clips, which you know because you just watched it. Anyway,